360 degrees. Ha ha, 360 degrees. Ha ha, 306, 306, 360 degrees. Ha ha, 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 ha. Round and round we go. To the circle, 360. Round and round we go. Life was
Oh, all right. Miyuyam Cho Onam and Namokiam to Full Circle, your cultural affairs radio magazine, produced by members and graduates of the First Voice Apprenticeship Program, broadcasting from right here at KPFA in Huichin. This is occupied Ohlone territory, also known to settlers as Berkeley, California. And this week on Full Circle, we pay special tribute to Frederick Douglass and his iconic speech, "What to the Slave is the 4th of July." On tonight's 2-hour special live broadcast, we'll hear excerpts of the famous speech delivered July 5th, 1852, read live here in the KPFA studios. We'll also hear some poetic words and music from UpSurge and friends to KPFA Full Circle, Raymond Nat Turner. And we'll close out the 8 o'clock hour with a short discussion about Frederick Douglass and this famous speech. That's tonight on Full Circle. I'm your host tonight, Free Will and Franklin, coming to you live from the KPFA studios here in Berkeley. Keep it locked right here to KPFA. All right, yes, welcome to Full Circle, your cultural affairs radio magazine. I am Free Will and Franklin, and I will be your host tonight. And yes, we will be hearing live readings from some of Frederick Douglass's speech, "What to the Slave is the 4th of July." And the speech was Frederick Douglass's iconic oration from 1852, and the speech was actually delivered on July 5th at Corinthian Hall in Rochester, New York. And Frederick Douglass was invited there to speak by the Rochester Ladies Anti-Slavery Society. And people have called this speech a masterpiece of American rhetoric, a scathing moral indictment, and an uncompromising call for justice. And this speech is widely celebrated and honored for its rhetorical brilliance and its emotional weight. And it's also maintained this enduring relevance through the years up to today. And again, this speech is often described as a searing critique of American hypocrisy. Frederick Douglass famously listed the values of the nation, declaring them mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy when juxtaposed with the brutality of the slave plantation. But I don't want to get off too far because we do have special guests here in the studio tonight to share this amazing speech with us. And I want to say hey and give a big shout out to the town crier right here next to me, Raymond Nat Turner. And Raymond is the one who contacted us here at Full Circle and asked if we can do this special 2-hour broadcast tonight and share these excerpts and these musical explorations with you. And also, Ziggy, I'm blanking on your last name, but Ziggy is here with us. Lowenberg. Thank you, Ziggy. And next to Raymond is Ziggy Lowenberg, and they're both going to be co-hosting with me tonight. So welcome, Raymond, and welcome, Ziggy, to Full Circle tonight.
Thank you, Franklin. Glad to be aboard.
Wonderful to be here. Thank you.
And before we get started with our special guests that are going to do some reading tonight from the Frederick Douglass speech, I wanted to ask Raymond, tell me what prompted you to start this alternative 4th of July celebration or honoring of Frederick Douglass and his speech, because this is not the first time you've done this. This performance is a tradition for you. It has a history. Tell us about that before we start with the readings.
Absolutely. Firstly, I would say Amiri Baraka, my mother-in-law, Ziggy's mom, drove us from Manhattan to Stony Brook College to see Amiri's course that he was teaching. And in the hallway outside of his office, he had a big poster of Frederick Douglass. And then in the class, he was talking about the brilliance of Frederick Douglass, his rhetorical brilliance that is on par with the Bible, on par with William Shakespeare, and on and on and on. And then fast forward, we did a jazz poetry festival at the Hillside Club in the Gourmet Ghetto here in Berkeley in 2007. And after we did that, it was a very successful gig. And so as typical, I contacted the band members and thanked them for their great work. And Angela Wellman, who was part of the band at that time, got back and said, "Oh, we should do something else." And so I was exhausted. I wasn't going to do anything, period. But she gave me a Godfather offer with the Frederick Douglass speech, and we did it at the Oakland Public Conservatory of Music. And as they say, the rest is history, because everyone came out, like, who was it? Wanda Sabir, who's a columnist with the San Francisco Bayview, said all the hip people were there. And that was correct, that first one. And then successively we did it. And then we took it to New York. And so, yeah, I would say Amiri and then Angela Wellman.
All right, so you're rolling on like 20 years of this.
It's going on 20 years. Next year it'll be 20.
All right, and Ziggy, you were part of the beginnings?
Oh, yeah, for sure. We were organizing it together, and even in New York when we would change the National Writers Union, the Labor Hall was just basically like just an office space, and we turned it into sort of our little studio and had the UpSurge NYC there, and we'd bring the lights down low, and we just had a great time. We even had a big cake for Frederick Douglass's celebration, and it was just wonderful.
Wow. I feel bad I turned the lights up now, but I got to have them on to read.
That's cool.
All right, well, we're going to get into the show tonight, but we're going to kick it off with this track, Ancestors, by Raymond Nat Turner, and we'll be back right after this.
Ancestors, let me be your drum tonight. Speak through me. Ancestors, let me be your drum tonight. Speak through me. Bestow me with elephant ears. Allow me to see.
Bird said, see with your ears and hear with your eyes. Bird said, see with your ears and hear with your eyes.
Ancestors, let me be your well tonight, flowing cool and clear. Ancestors, let me be your well tonight, flowing cool and clear. Bestow me with eagle's eyes, allow me to hear.
Bird said, see with your ears and hear with your eyes. Bird said, see with your ears and hear with your eyes.
ancestors, again I rise, eyes on the prize.
Again, we rise, eyes on the prize. Again, we rise, eyes on the prize. Again, we rise, eyes on the prize. Again, we rise, Bessie Smith on the prize. Again, we rise, Frederick Douglass, the prize. Again, we rise, Ida B. Wells,
Malcolm X.
David Walker,
Geronimo,
John Brown, Chief C. Atto,
Rosa Luxemburg,
Again, we Werner and Goodman. Malcolm X. Again, we rise. Eyes on the prize. Again, we rise. Eyes on the prize. Crazy horse.
Hey, I just heard Crazy Horse right at the end. All right, welcome back. You're listening to Full Circle right here on 94.1 FM KPFA and kpfa.org. Don't forget, we're part of the Pacifica Radio Network, and you just heard Ancestors performed by our special guest tonight, Raymond Nat Turner and Ziggy Lowenberger, sitting right next to me. Well, Raymond, you're sitting here, you just reflected back on your piece. Tell me about that piece in general and the creation of it before we get into our reading tonight.
Yeah, that piece, Ancestors, that was David Yule on bass and Darryl Green on drums. Yeah, David Yule on bass, Darryl Green on drums, and Richard Howell on soprano saxophones. And with the Howell kids, L.A. Howell and his sister Maia Howell doing backing vocals, along with Ziggy and myself doing spoken word there. And so that's it's a tribute to obviously the ancestors. It's like invoking them, bringing them into the spaces that we inhabit, and they're always here with us.
Definitely. How about you, Ziggy? What do you think about when you hear that piece?
Well, it is definitely calling in. It's the fighting spirits. It's the warriors. It's the love warriors for a better world. And we need them now more than ever, too.
How old is that piece?
That piece. Let's see, who it is.
I'm trying to remember.
Oh,
if it
2003
was
is when that CD was done.
Yeah, so
okay. Yeah.
we were doing it a few years before that. And also on the didgeridoo. We had
that was Ian. What's his name? I can't remember Ian's name.
Makes me think of my neighbor because he's always blowing the didgeridoo over there, and they gifted me one. I haven't yet to learn it, but
yeah, it's beautiful.
All right, well, it was beautiful. Well, thank you, Raymond and Ziggy, and we're going to continue on with our readings now of excerpts of Frederick Douglass's historic speech, "What to the Slave is 4th of July." And I'm going to throw it over to Raymond and Ziggy because they're going to introduce our first guest that we have here in the studio, which is Walter Riley and Christina Brown. Go ahead, Raymond and Ziggy.
Okay. Well, I am very honored to have the opportunity to introduce a author. His publication that's just dropped is called Civil Rights and Structural Attacks, Conversations with Walter Riley. It's on Legacy Books, and I'm understanding that it's selling massively, at book fairs and other venues. And so be on the lookout for it to be at Marcus Books and other locations soon. And Walter is a famous civil rights attorney, an activist with a lot of cred, a lot of receipts that go way back to San Francisco State, to the Muni bus drivers, and back to the Carolinas. So without further ado, I'd like to bring the distinguished gentleman forward to share the words of the great Frederick Douglass.
Mr. President, friends, and fellow citizens, he who could address this audience without a quailing sensation has stronger nerves than I have. I do not remember ever to have appeared as a speaker before any assembly more shrinkingly, nor with greater distrust of my ability than I do this day. A feeling has crept over me quite unfavorable to the exercise of my limited powers of speech. The task before me is one which requires more previous thought and study for the proper performance. I know that apologies of this sort are generally considered flat and unmeaning. I trust, however, that mine will not be so considered. Should I seem at ease, my appearance would much misrepresent me. The little experience I have had in addressing public meetings in country schoolhouses avails me nothing at the present occasion. The papers and placards say that I am to deliver a 4th July oration. This certainly sounds large and out of the common way for me. It is true that I have often had the privilege to speak in this beautiful hall and to address many who now honor me with their presence, but neither their familiar faces nor the perfect gauge I think I have of Corinthian Hall seems to free me from embarrassment.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to bring up Christina Brown. We've had the pleasure of collaborating with her. She is a visual artist, writer, and co-editor of Revolutionary Poets Brigade anthologies. She spent her childhood in Japan and Okinawa. She's an admirer of the crack that lets the light in, and often writes about what people will and will not do for love. Christina Brown.
Then would my task be light, and my burden easy and delightful. For who is there so cold that a nation's sympathy cannot warm him? Who so adore it and are dead to the claims of gratitude that would not thankfully acknowledge such priceless benefits? Who so stolid and selfish that would not give his voice to swell the hallelujahs of the nation's jubilee when the chains of servitude have been torn from his limbs? I am not that man. Such is not the case. I say it with a sad sense of disparity between us. I am not included within the pales of this glorious anniversary. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. The blessings in which you this day rejoice are not enjoyed in common. The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, not by me.
Thank you. The hyphen between African and American is Wyoming wide, wishing well steep, Himalaya high, and Grand Canyon deep. Long as rambling roads, plantation to ghetto. Long as barcodes on brown flesh. Long as 40 acres and a mule been in the mail. Long as Confederate flags fluttering over southern cities today. The hyphen between African and American is Wyoming wide, wishing well steep, Himalaya high, and Grand Canyon deep. Long as rambling roads, plantation to ghetto. Long as 56 licks last on Los Angeles streets. Long as list of white jurors trying black men accused. Long as sentences to San Quentin and Angola fused. Long as the serpentine comma between no justice, no peace. Long as the exclamation point behind hug the police. The hyphen between African and American is Wyoming wide, wishing well steep, Himalaya high, and Grand Canyon deep. Long as rambling roads, plantation to ghetto. Long as bikes in the Statue of Liberty's crown, long as the Liberty bells crack, long as watch hands waltzing in circles, long as promissory notes held 135 years.
All right, welcome back. You're listening to Full Circle right here on 94.1 FM KPFA and KPFA.org. We are part of the Pacifica Radio Network, and you just heard another performance by our guest tonight, Raymond Nat Turner. And Ziggy Lowenberg, you part of that one? That was you in there?
When we do it live now, but yeah, I'll echo his
Oh, good.
chorus.
All right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that was yeah, it wasn't just me. It was UpSurge. That was Ron Belcher on the bass and Babatunde Lee on drums and Richard Howell on tenor saxophone.
yeah, tell us a little bit more about that.
Wayne Shorter composition, Footprints, and the piece is called "The Hyphen Between African and American is Wyoming Wide," and I think it really summarizes what we've been dealing with here for hundreds of years. I mean, it just is very succinctly state. You know, this hyphen is between African and American is gigantic, and it hasn't, really been reduced in over the hundreds of years we've been struggling. So something needs to happen more radical.
Yeah, it makes you think, like, what does that mean? Then I start thinking, the hyphen, all right. It gives you food for thought, that's for sure.
So that's the point.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Raymond, because we're going to move on and continue with our special reading of the Frederick Douglass 4th of July speech, What to the Slave is a 4th of July. Do you want to introduce our next readers, Greg and Greg?
Yeah, but before that, I just want to thank the four readers for being here. I'm very honored to be in the same room with these distinguished individuals, all of them in their own ways have contributed mightily to not just the Bay Area, but beyond the Bay Area, in terms of the editing of anthologies, in terms of running poetry series, in terms of radio programming, in terms of lawyering and authoring and producing filmmakers and all that stuff. So we're in fine company tonight, folks, and so I'm in high spirits, and I'm very grateful to be in their presence.
The next up, we're going to have Greg Pond. Greg Pond is a prolific poet featured in many magazines and journals, including the Haight-Ashbury Literary Journal, and he currently hosts a poetry series at the Clarion Performing Arts Center in San Francisco's Chinatown. As well as organizing poetry sessions for the elderly, he's of service in his poetic life. Thank you, Greg Pond.
We are called upon to prove that we are men. Would you have me argue that man is entitled to liberty, that he is the rightful owner of his body? You have already declared it. Must I argue the wrongfulness of slavery? Is that a question for Republicans? Is it to be settled by the rules of logic and argumentation? Is a matter set with great difficulty involving a doubtful application of the principle of justice hard to understand? How should I look today in the presence of Americans dividing and subdividing? A discourse to show that men have a natural right to freedom, speaking of it, relatively and positively, negatively and affirmatively. To do so would be to make myself ridiculous and to offer an insult to your understanding. There is not a man beneath the canopy of heaven who does not know that slavery is wrong for him.
Next, I'm honored to bring to the microphones, and it seems so, this is a reversal in roles tonight. It just gives me great pleasure to bring the popular host of Transitions on Traditions here at KPFA on Monday nights, and a number of other programs at KCSM. I'm speaking none other than, and also I have to say, someone who was on our second CD, Chromatology, delivering the sportscaster's voice in a track called The Game, and that'd be none other than the mellifluous voice, Greg Bridges.
The sunlight that brought life and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me. This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, I must mourn. To drag a man in fetters into the grand illuminated temple of liberty and call upon him to join you in joyous anthems were inhuman mockery and sacrilegious irony. Do you mean, citizens, to mock me by asking me to speak today? If so, there is a parallel to your conduct. And let me warn you that it is dangerous to copy the example of a nation Babylon, whose crimes towering up to heaven with thrown down by the breath of the Almighty, burying that nation in recoverable ruin.
welcome back. Listening to Full Circle, and I think we want to thank you, Greg, for those readings. And Raymond, we have another one of your performances coming up next. Would you like to call out which one it was? Do you remember? I know it's the third one on the list.
That would be Dishonest Broker, if I'm not mistaken, and it was performed in Harlem at Sisters Bookstore during National Poetry Month and Jazz Appreciation Month with our UpSurge NYC group.
All right, Mickey, let's hit Dishonest Broker, and we'll be right back here on Full Circle.
Metallic music of shovels, abrasion again on bare hands, digging, digging, digging through twisted bones and busted bricks of buildings, to backpacks, blankets, baby body parts, to rescue tiny arms and legs emitting whispers. 1, 2, 3. Obese bulldozers, munching homes and olive trees, settlers snacking on bones of the evicted, aquifer flooded with seawater and sewage are now G-rated nightmares. And matter not to NFL, NBA, bipartisans. Forked tongue, dishonest broker, fluent in the ancient language of genocide, trots out tattered tropes of terror, swears another awful oath on Warhouse Bible, bathed in blood of tens of millions, trail of tears to Wounded Knee, Tulsa to Hiroshima, Korea to Vietnam, to Afghanistan, Riddler, Joker, dishonest broker. You have a right to be an aircraft carrier on the desert, acting as a weapons lab, conducting trade shows, disguised as democracy, acting as an apartheid state, concealing Third Reich real estate practices. Go on, step on the gas, mow the grass. You have a right to quell them, shell them, bombard them, boneyard them, snipe them, wipe them, unhome them, pogrom them, expel them, farewell them. You have a right to strangulate them, annihilate them, bomb roads they're instructed to travel, let them all eat lead and gravel. You have a right to kill them one a day for years, daily for decades, until bloody boot prints become normal as ironclad, normal as Baghdad. You have a right to 22 days of carnage, provided you Madison Avenue it. Operation Cast Lead. You have a right to step on the gas, mow the grass. You have a right to 51 days of slaughter, just marketed Operation Protective Edge. You have a right to step on the gas and mow the grass. You have a right to Dr. Goebbels' white phosphorus prescriptions for human animals, holding human shields, holding hostages, holding hospital hideouts, holding house keys for 3/4 of a century.
All right, welcome back to Full Circle right here on 94.1 FM KPFA and worldwide all the time at kpfa.org. We are part of the Pacifica Radio Network, and tonight we are paying tribute to and honoring the life of Frederick Douglass and his iconic speech, "What to the Slave is the 4th of July." And the now famous speech was delivered on July 5th, 1852 at Corinthian Hall in Rochester, New York. The speech was given at the invitation of the Rochester Ladies Anti-Slavery Society. And tonight we have been listening to excerpts from that speech, and we're going to continue that into the 8 o'clock hour up to 9 o'clock. And I just want to take a moment before we get into the second hour to talk to you, Raymond and Ziggy, about some of your thoughts tonight. And now, Raymond, you've had the alias, the Town Crier. You also bear the name of another revolutionary, Nat Turner, as you are known as Raymond Nat Turner, the Town Crier. Tell us your thoughts about using these pointed words in your poetry like you do. And relate that to how you first felt when you encountered this speech with those pointed words by Frederick Douglass, what to the slave is the 4th of July. Just kind of link those two together on how you use your poetry.
Yeah. I have to thank Amiri Baraka for being so on it as far as the worth and value of Douglass's oratory, his writings, and then Angela Wellman for, bringing it forward into my face, just like sort of just jamming it into my face like a pie or something. And it teaches me that, I too am part of a lineage. I'm not putting myself on that level. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that all of us artists and activists and people of letters have the duty to delve into Douglass's words and his teachings and his vision and bring it forward, because it's a tool, it's a weapon, and those are the things that the times that we're faced with really demand today.
Yeah, thank you, Raymond. And how about you, Ziggy? Because I hear these. I remember when I heard the Frederick Douglass speech, and I was blown away. And I'm like, "Dang, man, this guy knows how to use the words." You know, I don't have that vocabulary and that delivery. And I feel like James Earl Jones is Frederick Douglass because I've heard it so many times from Democracy Now! And you know that voice he has and how he has that delivery. I just imagine that it's him. But how about you, Ziggy? How about, using poetry and, pointed words or sentences, or maybe not even pointed, but very philosophical, or something that links you to history to today? Just kind of tell us about how you use words in your poetry.
Well, I think that I have to say, when I came into UpSurge and into this Raymond sphere, I was a visual artist, but I always wrote in my journals. And so I was writing from a personal space, but I also was trained as a young person to look out at the world and take a stand and, fight for justice. So it brought worlds together to watch a poet in my very midst and be open to this world of more politically pointed poetry. And so I really learned that, and I used my heritage. Some of my early work is also about the fighting spirit, originally of Jewish activists and socialists. That was the tradition I came from. Things have changed quite a bit in the world these days, so I have to keep up on what is the fighting spirit, and where can we find it. And one thing I wanted to say is that we had the honor of visiting Frederick Douglass's home in Maryland, and we were actually, it's a national park site, and it better be preserved. We have to fight for that as well these days. We got there, and they were about to close, but they saw how urgent we were. We have to see where he lived, and he had some special things that we got out of it. One area where he had this place that he called the Growly, which was like a little shack out in the backyard of his place. He had this beautiful house. He was well appointed after he was part of the government, and he was an ambassador, I believe, to Haiti. And he had this writing space, and it was like a shed because he had those roots. He knew, he brought all that history with him, and that's where he'd do his best writing. So that was just hugely inspiring that we got to do that. And Raymond and I it was early in our evolution as, a couple in a creative team. So we carry that with us all the time. So he was inspiring on a lot of levels.
Yeah. I just wanted to chime in a little bit about the Douglass house. Ziggy's right to bring that up because it's a remarkable structure. It's huge. It's grand. But as she pointed out, there's this space that's very humble that he maintained to remind him of whence he had come from, being enslaved. And then also it was a way to get away from his multitudes of grandchildren, where he can concentrate on his writing and his thinking, So, I'm glad Ziggy brought that up. And I recommend it highly to anyone who may be listening and thinking about going back to the D.C. area. And as Ziggy said, we have to fight to maintain that because this process of erasure that the cruel right cult is engaged in is something that we have to take very seriously.
Definitely. Well, thank you for that, because I think a lot of people, they think about visiting these historic sites, but when you think about like what Frederick Douglass did, and then you see his place, you might not know about the little shack out in the back right. unless you get out there and check it out for yourself.
Right.
Think about it. Well, thank you for enlightening us on that. And let me just bring you back to that last performance that we just heard, because I know that you work a lot in politics and current events and stuff like that. I don't know how old that one is, but you can catch phrases and words that some of us have become familiar with, like Operation Cast Lead. Yeah. You could mow your lawn. So tell us about the evolution. I'm blanking on the title of that one, but remind us the title and then kind of talk about the inspiration behind that and why it's so relevant right now.
Sure. That was called Dishonest Broker, and I was a Kavi Khanum fellow. Kavi Khanum is a African American poetry writers group, primarily based in New York, but there was a fellowship that was offered out here, and it was stewarded by the San Francisco poet laureate emerita DeVore Major, and that's where I wrote that piece, and it was prior to the current genocide that began. What has it been now? 3 years? Or,
I think they marked 1,000 days yesterday.
1,000 days, yeah. And so it was prior to that, and wow. so it does reference, as you said, so-called Operation Cat Sled, and the other one,
Mowing the lawn.
Yeah, they talk about slaughtering Palestinians and conducting genocide, an ongoing genocide. They references as mowing the grass or mowing the lawn.
Yeah, it was a reference to they couldn't really take out everybody, but every once in a while they had to kill so many as they would mow the lawn, basically, taking out as many as they could. Well, thank you for that insight, Raymond, because it's good to know where you draw your inspiration from. Sometimes it could be a dark place that we live in this dark world, sometimes these dark times.
Yeah.
And the poetry kind of flows from, what we're witnessing.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that Paul Robeson, who was a great artist, who was obviously influenced by W.E.B. Du Bois, who was influenced by Frederick Douglass, and then Robeson in turn influenced the late, great Harry Belafonte. And Robeson said that the artist must choose sides, and he had no option but to choose a side in opposition to slavery, and that's what I think of myself as a child of Robeson,
And how about you, Ziggy? Talk about where some of the things that you draw your inspiration from when you do poems. I know sometimes, as we just talked about with Raymond, sometimes they come from darker places, but how about you? You draw them from dark places, from light, a mixture of both?
Yeah, I think I know one place when I was starting out that I had read the journals of Emma Goldman, who was an anarchist and socialist in the early turn of the 20th century, and she really fought for liberation on a lot of different levels. Also, one of the lines that gets attributed to her is, "If I can't dance, I don't want to be part of your revolution."
Oh, I know that one. Yeah.
So there has to be some bread and roses. There has to be some joy in with the struggle, because it's a perpetual. It's a marathon. It's a long one. And that's taken me a lifetime even to internalize. Because when you're young, you think, okay, we're going to do it. we're going to solve this. And I'm at the age now where I'm looking over across the room right now. We have a beautiful young gentleman here with the name of Malcolm who's doing some video, and it's passing the baton. And it's a way that Greg Bridges brought to my attention when we were talking about the peace ancestors. And he said, when people do leave or transition, we have to think also about it, that they're leaving space for the new ones to come in and take their place. So we have to be there to mentor and shepherd, and so it's the life force, the life cycle of the revolutionary poets and people that have gone, and writers and activists that have gone before us, and artists, visual artists as well.
All right, thank you. That's the voice of Ziggy Lowenberg. She's part of UpSurge right here with Raymond Nat Turner. And just coming up after the 8 o'clock hour, we're going to get back into some of the reading of Frederick Douglass's oration. I keep calling it a speech, but it's an oratory, and I can't say the word so great. I always feel like I'm going to mess it up, so I've been calling it a speech. But we're going to return to that a little bit after 8, but I'm catching up with a little bit with Raymond now. And I know we kind of touched on this at the opening of the show tonight, but folks might just be joining us. Just remind us of why you feel it's important to share these words of Frederick Douglass and of your poetry tonight. You know, why are we here doing this?
Well, I think it's, people are looking for quote unquote hope. Some people were talking about joy. All those things are human. That's what, goes towards making us human. But also resistance is something that is human. When you're oppressed, you resist. And so I can think of no one more remarkable when it comes to the process of resisting, the process of becoming conscious, like Douglass, he's an enslaved individual. He's in bondage. He's owned by someone, someone owns his body, his soul, and his spirit, quote unquote, they think they do anyway. And then he liberates himself, he emancipates himself. And the words that people have been speaking tonight were written, firstly, they were thought of and written by formerly enslaved individual, who educated himself. He had the fighting spirit and the determination to educate himself to that point where he could be this force and a continuing force. And so I think today, it's important for us to embrace figures like that. And my dream for a long time has been that every city, every hamlet, every village would have a Frederick Douglass Day celebration like we used to have at the Oakland Public Conservatory of Music and at the National Writers Union in New York. We would always do it on the 3rd of July. And I found out that later in my family, people weren't permitted to celebrate the 4th of July. Yeah. They had to be doing some work. And so what we did at the Oakland Public Conservatory of Music, we celebrated our Frederick Douglass Day on the 3rd. Then on the 4th, we would be at OPC, maybe painting or cleaning or organizing.
All right.
Yeah. So I'm saying that, people should embrace this day in the form of Frederick Douglass, the words of Douglass, and create their own celebrations on the 3rd all across the country. That's my dream. I hope before I go out, I see that.
All right. Well, we're doing it tonight. I'm so glad the 3rd turned out today. Yeah. And we got just about a minute or 30 seconds here to introduce your next piece, OH. You want to introduce the next piece that's going to take us into 8 o'clock?
Sure. It's called OH, or Operation Homefront. And we had some great Bay Area folks on there, Brenda Boykin, the late George Hubbard on vocals, and Richard Howell on vocals and saxophone.
All right, Mickey, let's take it away with Operation Homefront, and we'll be right back here on Full Circle.
We must put an end to the culture of war. Cut back on the oil that it kills folks for.
As long as there's greed, there can be no peace. Imperialist bloodshed simply must cease.
Take to the streets and protest in the USA. Take to the streets and protest in the UK. Take to the streets and protest in the USA. Take to the streets and protest in the UK.
Our war is here against hunger and greed and racist bloodshed on which fascists feed.
Into battle for homes and health. Soften up enemies to liberate our wealth.
Take to the streets and protest in the USA.
In the USA.
Take to the streets and protest in the UK.
In the UK,
Take to the streets and protest in the USA.
In the US.
Take to the streets and protest in the UK.
in the UK. Pay no attention to forked tongues in their polls. Listen to the voices that are deep in our souls.
Take to the streets and protest in the USA. Take to the streets and protest in the UK. Take to the streets and protest in the USA. Take to the streets and protest in the UK. Take to the streets and protest in the USA.
In the USA.
Take to the streets and protest in the UK.
In the UK,
Take to the streets and protest in the USA.
In the USA.
Take to the streets and protest in the UK.
in the UK,
Take to the streets and protest in the USA.
USA.
Take to the streets and protest in the UK. Take to the streets and protest in the USA. Take to the streets and protest in the UK.
All right, we'll be right back here after these quick announcements. And we'll be back with some more readings from Frederick Douglass's famous oratory, What to the Slave is the 4th of July. We'll be right back.
American historian Manisha Sinha.
One could imagine the permanent achievement of interracial democracy and Black citizenship in this country. And if we had had that, you could really think about the republic that we had after the civil rights movement as having taken place 100 years prior. So it would have been a tremendous success for American democracy if indeed we had been able to preserve the results of the Civil War and create a society in the South that was more just towards people of African descent. You know, we still live with the long afterlives of slavery and racism in this country, and one of the reasons why we do that is precisely because Reconstruction was overthrown in a brutal manner.
Get Learned, only on KPFA.
There are easier ways to do radio than this. Corporate sponsors, paywalls, wealthy backers calling the shots. KPFA chose a different path. Listener-funded, independent, accountable to the community instead of advertisers. And for 77 years, listeners like you have made that possible. Guardians, our monthly sustainers, support KPFA at whatever level works for them. $5 a month can make a real difference when enough people come together to give. Because independent media does not survive automatically. It survives because people decide it should. Join them. You pick the number, we'll keep the radio on. kpfa.org.
You're listening to 94.1 KPFA in Berkeley, 89.3 KPFB in Berkeley, 88.1 KFCF in Fresno, and online everywhere at kpfa.org.